There have been several comedians in recent years that have received flack for jokes that have been considered in poor taste. Famously, in 2011, Gilbert Gottfried lost his job as the Aflac Duck because he tweeted some rather ill-timed jokes about tsunamis right after Japan suffered from a horrendous one. In more recent news, Amy Poehler was put under fire because of the show that she helped produce called Difficult People, in which one of the characters made a particularly poor joke about Blue Ivy Carter becoming old enough for R. Kelly to pee on her. When incidences like this occur, the internet tends to break off into two extreme groups. There's the side that thinks that people should be able to say whatever they want and free speech and people are way too sensitive and Tumblr ruins everything. Or there's the side that says you really shouldn't offend people, it's 2016, come on man, these jokes are insensitive, like, just stop it. Now, whichever side that you lean toward, I don't care. I'm not here to talk about whether or not comedy has become too vulgar or too sensitive. I'm just here to talk about a particular argument that people use to defend jokes that get criticized that I want to die in a fire. Whenever a comedian is under fire for a joke that is considered out of taste, someone anywhere will use this to defend it, and it sucks and it's awful and I don't want people to use it anymore, so I'm gonna make a whole video about it so you never use it again. When someone is offended by a joke, there's almost always someone who will retort with the defense, "It's just a joke," which drives me up the fucking wall. Saying it's just a joke implies somehow that jokes are exempt from consequences. Also implies that jokes aren't important. Hell no, I'm not standing for that. Comedy is just as important as any other genre. Comedy serves an important purpose in our culture as not only to help lift our spirits and laugh in dark times, but to help expose uncomfortable truths that we might not be able to look at otherwise. Yet, just like with any other form of art, sometimes you miss the mark. Writers write bad books sometimes. Directors make crappy movies. Actors give less than stellar performances. And comedians sometimes write bad jokes. Sometimes a bad joke can just mean that it's not funny. Other times a bad joke can mean that it's offensive to the group of people the joke was supposed to be about. But the thing is that comedies and comedians can't just accept their critical acclaim when jokes are funny and not accept the criticism when jokes are bad. By saying that a comment was just a joke, you're implying that comedy shouldn't be taken as seriously as other forms of writing. It takes a lot of effort to write a good comedy, and not many comedians can do it. Dying is easy, comedy is hard. You can't just enjoy comedians, love watching comedic TV shows and movies, and then turn around and say, oh no, that's not up to the standards of other content and genres. That's dumb. Now, you might be thinking, come on, Emily, nobody takes comedy that seriously. But the thing is that yes we do. We as a culture value comedy as an art form, and I can prove it. Just think about the way the internet reacted when Robin Williams passed away. People were devastated. His face was everywhere. A bunch of his older movies were uploaded onto Netflix all over the place. It was just a complete shit show. Now, even though the internet does tend to get weepy over celebrity deaths, this one hit a lot of people really hard. And that's because everyone associated him with laughter. Everyone was talking about what an important milestone in their childhood his movies were, and about how they were just uplifted by watching them, and he had mattered so much to people. That's just one example about how we really do value comedic performers and comedy, and there's nothing just about jokes, so that's why this gets me so angry. Okay, So now we've established that comedy is important and jokes should not be written off as insignificant. How do we tell whether or not a joke is actually offensive? There have been plenty of times where people on the internet have been offended by a joke, and then when you actually look at what the joke was or the context, it really didn't turn out to be that offensive. So how do we tell whether or not it was a genuinely offensive or bad joke, or whether or not the internet's just having a slow news day? One trick that I found really useful when trying to identify offensive humor is have the person explain the joke to me. Sometimes a joke can just come out wrong and hit the ear poorly. So if you have whoever told the joke or someone who thinks the joke is funny to explain why it's funny, they'll normally either come out clear and explain what it was, or they'll end up sounding like a sexist, racist douchebag. If they explain it like this is a difficult truth that we are having trouble facing, and explaining it in a comedic way can help open up a discussion and lead to change. It's worlds away from if they explain it like this. Well, it's funny because black people, am I right? Yeah, it's very different, and normally you can tell. Now, if they explain the joke and it still turns out to be genuinely offensive, the comedian has one of two options. They can either vehemently apologize, acknowledge that they missed the mark on this joke, and try not to do anything like that again, or they can just take the flack. If they genuinely don't think they've done anything wrong, then they should stick by their guns, stand up for their joke, and say, look, I don't think I did anything wrong. I'm not gonna apologize for it. The one thing that you don't do is say, it's just a joke. Not everyone is gonna agree with each other, especially not in this golden age of the internet. However, I'm just angry when people try, instead of addressing why the joke was offensive or why people were offended, or even inversely, why maybe people were a little too sensitive and not ready to laugh on a subject. No, we're not gonna open the door to that discussion. We're just gonna write it off as it's just a joke. Why were you bothering to criticize and pick apart a joke in the first place? Don't you know that it's a joke? It's just a joke. There aren't any consequences or anything real here. It's not like someone sat down and had to write this and then acted it out. Like, no. Let's recap. So jokes are important, and comedy is just as valid as any other genre. So the people who write comedies are still very much accountable for their actions, even if people think that their writing is offensive. I'd like to end this video with a simple ultimatum for people. If you still think that you want to use the argument of it's just a joke whenever a comedian gets flack, that means that you basically think that comedy is not as worthwhile as any other form of art or writing. Being a stand-up comedian is not a skill. Comedic writers don't deserve as much honors as regular writers. Comedic actors aren't as good as regular actors, and comedic movies don't deserve to be as preserved and treasured as other movies. Because after all, the entire backbone of all of those things are just jokes. It's up to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like if you liked it, subscribe if that's your thing, and send this to everyone you know who ever uses the excuse it's just a joke, and hopefully they will not use it again.